We're going to talk about some tips for drawing lips. So first off, here's how not to draw lips. So you don't want to have them asymmetrical with a really hard outline. There is some texture, but you don't want those really dark lines. And you want the shading to reflect the values that are actually there. So everybody has different shapes of lips. But to start, I usually like to kind of start with this shape at the top that almost looks like if you were a little kid and you were going to draw a seagull. And so this is doing lips that are closed. So you want to start with getting that shape kind of symmetrical. You can always put in some light lines to start to see if things are symmetrical. And if you are drawing the line across the middle, it's not going to be totally straight across. I'm going to do everything lightly to start. It's probably going to dip in the middle a little bit. But again, you need to look at, whoever you're drawing and the shape of their lips in particular, because everybody's lips are shaped a little different. This is just kind of a generic way to get started. All right, so I have my top lip, that kind of line in the middle, but don't do anything really dark because by the time you're finished, there's not really hard outlines around your lips unless you're wearing dark lip liner. And then when you go to do the bottom lip, it's a little more rounded, and the bottom lip is usually fuller than the top lip. Some people have fuller lips than others, but that's kind of a general shape that you can start with. And then when you start to add value, you can kind of look at using the side of your pencil, to get the values on there kind of smoothly and get kind of a middle value to start. Usually the bottom lip is going to stick out a little bit more than the top lip. So there's going to be a little bit of a highlight towards the middle part right here of that bottom lip. So maybe I'm not even going to shade that quite as much. And then you can try using your blending stump or your kneaded eraser. And, I already have some graphite on here, so I'm also kind of using some of the graphite that's already on my blending stump. Keep in mind, if you blend a lot, it does get rid of your range of values. So once you blend, you still have to go back and add more on top, like darken in your darks, pull out your highlights with a kneaded eraser. And those lines that you do in the beginning, you want to keep pretty light so you can go back and erase later. All right, so the darkest part is usually going to be this sort of line or this like space between the two lips. So to change value gradually, I'm kind of going in slow circles with my pencil, and you can just like let up the pressure a little bit because you don't want it to be necessarily a harsh line in there, but it is a darker value kind of along that line. I'm going to let it fade a little bit on that top lip. In general, it's probably going to be a little darker, and it depends on the lighting of your photo too, or the person's face, if there's really strong directional light from one direction. But probably the bottom of that bottom lip is going to be a little darker than the top. And if I didn't really leave enough highlight, I could always go back and use my kneaded eraser and kind of pull that out a little bit. That highlight that's kind of around here on the bottom lip. And then I want to go back and darken up the top lip a little more. And for the texture of the lips, there are sort of lines in the lip, but they're not real thick. and heavy like this. And they're not thick and heavy like that. They're also not straight. A lip curves, right? Like each lip is like a cylinder, the shape of a cylinder, right? Like kind of a pencil is kind of like two cylinders. So if you think of your lips, they're kind of curving like cylinders. So they curve like that. So it's a little like shading a cylinder. So it looks three-dimensional. So if I'm kind of putting some of those little lines, I don't want to make them really, really thick, but to put a little bit of the texture of the lips in lightly. If I'm making those lines, I want them to curve with the shape of a lip, right? Like a cross contour. Like if you think about if I was drawing this blending stump and I was using hatch lines, I would want them to curve around it because that would like accentuate the way the form bumps out. So whatever lines I'm going to lightly put in the lips for the texture, I'm going to do them kind of on a curve. They kind of pick up the shape of the lip a little more. And then I can go back and darken where I need to darken. Again, you don't want harsh outlines, but you do want an edge to things. And you can also take an eraser or take a kneaded eraser and pull out some of the lighter parts. But you want to kind of look at your reference, not just make it up to make it look more realistic. And it's going to look different if someone's wearing like lipstick or lip gloss, you know, as opposed to not. It might have a little more highlights and darks to make it look shiny. And then around the lip, let me erase my guidelines now. I put in to get it symmetrical. Above the lip, most people have this sort of divot right here. Some people, it might be more pronounced than others. And then around the lips, there's a value there too. I mean, it depends on your skin tone, but it's not the color of the paper. So you want to put in a value around that so it doesn't look like, so it looks like it's part of the face. This is going to go a little darker. So I'm just using the graphite that's already, I didn't even draw here. I'm just using the graphite that's already on my blending stump that I picked up in other areas. And it might be, a little more dark at the corners of the mouth. You could also, if you have a bigger area to blend, you could always use a tissue to blend in a larger area. You could even try blending with a dry paintbrush. That works really well for charcoal, but you can try it with a soft pencil too. And then there's going to be a little bit of a shadow under the lip too. Maybe getting into the chin a little bit. Again, you want to look at your reference image of the person that you're actually drawing. I had a shadow too dark. And then you can go back and darken things and lighten things as you need to. Like I might go back and darken this a little bit more under here. But the bottom lip is usually a little lighter because it sticks out a little more at the top part. And that's, you can get a lot more detailed, but that's the gist of the idea.